All right. So, the last couple examples just kind of get your feet wet with using JavaScript to create HTML. Let's go back and remember that with JavaScript, we can create objects, right? And I'm just going to kind of do a really, really quick refresher of how to make an object in JavaScript. So let's just say for the sake of argument, I'm making a car. I always make a car. Let's make something else. I don't know, a cell phone. Okay. And this is going to be my object, right? And I can have properties. Also referred to typically as parameters for an object. And I'm going to say like a price, and I don't know, let's say it's $1,000. Manufacturer, and let's say it's Apple. Oops. Uh, release year, I don't know, 2025, blah blah blah. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a good Boolean. I don't know. Color, it's rose gold or whatever. I don't know. What's a Boolean for a cell phone? Has protection plan, that thing they make you buy. So like, I don't know, does it have a protection plan? And I did not. So false. So if you remember, we could do this, right? And then like I could actually call properties of that object, right? So I'm just gonna turn this off temporarily. We'll come back to that in a second. So it's like I could say, okay, give me just the manufacturer of the cell phone object, cell phone dot manufacturer, right? And if I were to print this or, preview this, I should say, right? This is kind of ringing a bell. Or I could do, let's do another one. I keep doing that like it's not a string. Cell phone dot price, okay. And you might remember that, you know, objects could have functions in them called methods. So what do cell phones do? Well, in theory, they call people, right? Even though most of the time that's probably not what we care about. But like I'm gonna have a function called make call, and here's my function. I don't know, calling, you know, your mom, your friend. I don't know, something like that, right? So this is a function or a method built into the object, and then I could do something like, okay, well, let's use the make call function in the cell phone. And if I did this and I go back, calling your friend, right? Or I could make another method. I don't know, call an Uber, call Uber. Okay. Request made to Uber, right? What did I call it? Call Uber. All right. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, if you remember, when you have objects, P5 actually has objects. Um, it's kind of, I don't really like the newer version of it. It kind of made more sense. So if it says something like P5 XL or P5 table, any of these where it has the word P5, what it means is that that is an object. So if you were to make an object that's a P5 element, it actually has a bunch of properties and method, or as we'd call them, parameters, and it also has functions or what we'd call methods built into them. Okay, so for instance, there's a built-in property for all elements called width. Okay, now how does this work? So I'm just going to turn this off if you're okay with that. If you get all tricked up, just, rewind the video a little bit. So when you make an element, like using the create p tag or the create element tag or something like that, you are making a P5 HTML element, which is an object, okay? Which means it has default properties and default functions inside of it, okay? So here's what we're doing. Let's start with just paragraph, okay? Once again, patent pending. IO. I'm creating an object called my paragraph. My paragraph. Boom. All right. So in the past, we stored a single value, right? Like a Boolean or single Boolean, like just true or false, but not both. Or we stored, one number, but not more than one number, or one string, but not more than one string, right? In the last example, we talked about, well, your variable can actually store an object, and objects can have multiple properties or multiple parameters and have multiple methods in them. So like, this is what we call a P5 element. And to be perfectly honest, I don't even know every single element it has. You can kind of look it up here. So there is something called width. There's also an ET, which and height. So this would give you information about that element. So it's like height, width, ELT, which is something I don't really know. And all that information kind of gets stored here. So like if I were to make, if I do this, where I'm making this P tag, right? It's going to build it with a width and a height, and that information is going to get stored. So let's just say for the sake of argument, when I build this, it's adding it to my list here. And then I'm putting all of that information and it's stored here. Okay. Everybody with me? So I have a variable and I'm saying, okay, this variable is equal to this HTML, or sorry, I take that back. This P5 element. Okay. And because objects have default info, at least in this case, this object has default parameters, we can actually call that now that we've done this. So in the same way, I could have said cell phone dot manufacturer, cell phone dot price, cell phone dot color, all that kind of stuff. I can now say, okay, well, let's do print dot my paragraph dot width. Okay, width is a property or a parameter of this variable, which variable is holding this object. Okay, I know that kind of can get a little crazy here, but that's what's happening. And if I were to go back, see that 1,121, that's actually the width of my P tag. Okay, you can actually we can actually tell that, because if I actually highlight this, see that number there, 1321, that's the width. Okay, so see how that's the exact same number it's giving me back, right? And if I were to do print, I don't know, my paragraph dot height, I could get that value if I wanted it. Okay. And once again, that's giving me this height. And if I actually click on this, see that 18.5, it rounded it to the nearest number. But you can see where that number is coming from. You could even use this with like an if statement. So for instance, I don't know. I don't even know. Maybe I'm going to use an if statement that looks at the value of my paragraph. And if it's above a certain number, I can make something new. Or if it's below a certain number, it won't make something new. So what if I did this? I say, okay, if my paragraph is, dot width is more than, I don't know, let's say 1200, then why don't we make another paragraph? Create P. Oops. Sup, new paragraph. Yo. Am I cool with the kids yet with all my lingo? Anyway, so, okay, let's try this out. I'm gonna go back and let's refresh. So, let's do a little Blackboard math here. I have a variable. It's defaultly blank. Okay. We get to this part and I'm like, all right, I'm making a new, P5 object. This case, it's a paragraph. It has this is the element. And that also has some default information stored here, including the width and the height. I'm now calling that this is basically variable substitution. It's going to look at the value of this. And if it's above 1200, it's going to do this. And if it's below 1200, it's not going to do this. Okay. So I come back, I write or refresh. It does make that because this is more than 1200. If I were to lower the width here and I refresh this, notice that it doesn't do that, right? So you can use this information to your benefit. I don't know why specifically you'd want to know the width of the element, but you could do that if you wanted to, okay? All right, not only do the objects have parameters or properties about them, they also have methods or functions that can change things. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, let's go back. So in my example of my cell phone, we had cell phone call Uber or whatever it was, cell phone turn on, cell phone call your mom, whatever, right? Those were functions that the cell phone could do. And anything here, you can actually, these are all, if it ends in a little parentheses, that's a function that you can do to the P5 element you just created. So for instance, one of them is called HTML. What HTML allows you to do is actually change the value of what is inside of the HTML. So for instance, like here, what's happening is I'm creating a P tag called this is basic text. What I'm going to do is now say my paragraph dot HTML. This is a function and I can change the P value to whatever I want. This is now new information or new text or whatever. Okay. Oops, wrong one. I think it's this one. There you go. All right. Now you might be going like, cool, I guess, but couldn't I have already, couldn't I have already, done that when I was writing it? Well, yeah, you could have, but what if we like added another element to that? So like you guys at this point should hopefully know how to do basic event handling, right? So what if I'm going to add in a key pressed event handler, and let's just say for the sake of argument, this is where I change it. So it's not just happening automatically in the setup, it's waiting until I press a key on my keyboard to make the change. So I come into here, this is basic text, and then watch what happens when I hit my key on my keyboard, then it changes it. Okay, so if you're ever on like a website and you click a button or something and you notice the content changes, this is what we're doing. I changed the content of this page while the page is running. Okay, that's a really powerful thing that you can't just do with HTML and CSS by itself. There's no current way to do that. Okay, so this is why this kind of thing is kind of important here. All right. Let's make another one. I'm gonna make another variable, my headline, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to set that equal to an H1. So my headline equals create element. And I'm going to make an H1. And I don't know, put whatever text you want. This is some H1 text. Boom. Okay. once again, this is a new element. And it has because it's an object, it has built-in parameters I can take advantage of. So, all right, just for the fun of it, let's go get that width. So print my headline dot width. Oops. Let's go back. All right. If I were to rerun this, it should be a different value because it's based on the width, right? So now I'm actually getting the width of the H1, not the P tag here. And just like I did with the other, why don't we change the value? Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say function. I'm just going to do a mouse pressed. And let's have some fun. I'm gonna set it up that you have to press your mouse 5 times. I don't know why 5, but I just made that up. Let count equals 0. So I'm just making a variable that holds a counter. Count equals count plus 1. If count is more than 5, then why don't we run that HTML function? Or sorry, not my paragraph, my headline dot HTML. This is, I don't know. What a beautiful day. Okay, so let's try that. Let's go back. All right. What was that? Mouse press? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom. All right. So, hopefully you can see why this could be interesting. You can, use this to, create content and then edit that content. Okay. In the next one, we'll talk about some additional things you can do with some of the functions or the built-in methods. That includes adding classes to something that already exists, parenting an item to another item, adding in IDs, and then we'll talk about working with the draw function and such. Okay.